Welcome everybody to LA Times. We thank you for stepping in, man. We got a special treat for you. Before we get going, I want you to please hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell. Man, we got a special one today. We got Johnny here. You can find him on Instagram at No Script Fellowship. Brother, I don't want to get into everything you're into, but he was part of watching. And anybody that knows anything about SoCal and watching knows that that's a heavy organization. But he wants to share his path, his journey today. So I'm going to hand it over to you, bro. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you guys for having me. Honestly, shout out to LA Times, and I really do appreciate it. It's my pleasure to be on here.
Yeah, man, that's what we're about, man. Spreading some good news, man. And
Absolutely.
so let's get going with it, Johnny. Um, Let us know what kind of family you grew up in, and how and where did you grow up?
So the type of family that I grew up in is actually a very traditional Asian Chinese family. So we had two-parent household for me. My father was the breadwinner at the time. He was the chef, and my mom kind of also worked too, but she didn't make as much as my father. But it was kind of ran almost like a dictatorship. Whatever my father said goes. No matter what. So it was me and my brother, and yeah, we grew up in the San Gabriel Valley. We also moved around kind of East LA, Boyle Heights area for a little bit. I was actually born in Koreatown, but I was just born at that hospital, Vermont Hospital, and then from there we moved essentially east to East LA, and then lived there for a little bit, and then I spent all of my childhood years in the San Gabriel Valley, all around San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, man. San Gabriel Valley, it's right on the corner, man. A big Asian population, and there's also a big Hispanic population. And before we even get into anything, man, into like what swerved you the other way, man, did you experience racism from Mexicans or blacks, or as a kid? Because I kind of know, I kind of know a little bit about the Asian gangs, the Mexican gangs. So, man, did you experience that as a youngin?
I did actually when I was young. My parents they kind of dressed us as kids. I mean, most parents dress their children, but when I was about 9, 10 years old, we had the bowl haircuts. We had the just we just looked very very lame and kind of not cool. We looked very nerdy. So because of that, we were getting picked on, and then on top of that, we didn't fit the stereotypical Asian where we had money and stuff. We lived in project housing, we lived in Section 8, we were on welfare, and my mom actually, she would kind of be afraid of us going out often, but I mean, of course, we had to go to school, and that's where I faced a lot of racism and discrimination inside of school. And yeah, we didn't really have any blacks around our area or African Americans, but like you mentioned earlier, we did have a lot of Hispanics, and yes, we did get picked on.
Yeah, and we'll get into it later, man. But I remember hearing of just a lot of racism between Hispanics and Asians growing up, especially in that area. Even going into the Diamond Bar, West Covina, Rolling Heights, all that. Because there's two main populations right there, Asian and Mexican. It's sad, and so glad God brought us out of that. But
Amen.
um, going forward, man, you're growing up in a family, a very traditional family, man. Something happened along the way, man. Something swerved you. What started happening? And tell us about this new lifestyle you started picking up, and what were the things that lured you that way, man?
Sure. So, as I could remember very vividly when I came home at about 11, 12 years old, one time we were getting picked on. It was the first time I had gotten jumped. It was for Hispanics by a local gang at the time, Rosemead, Monterey Park area, and they jumped me, and they took my backpack. They pretty much stole everything from me, and when I got home, I had expressed to my mom and my dad, my I had gotten jumped, my backpack was stolen, blah 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 blah. But my father did not believe me, and my mom didn't believe me. They thought that I was a knucklehead. I was messing up in school, and I had schemed up this whole story that, and essentially was just deceiving them. But eventually, at that point in my heart, I really felt that I could not trust my parents anymore. I couldn't trust anybody anymore, actually, and I really had to fend for myself. So, I took a knife to school and started to kind of be active in getting into trouble. And at that time, I started catching the eye of the local gang, which I am part of now. And yeah, that is essentially how I kind of swerved. Was that distrust was inside of my heart, and then on top of that, I had seen a lot of the gang members back then making money, and they were making more money than my parents, and they were younger. They had that prestigious, respectful lifestyle, and I really wanted that. And I determined inside of my heart at that time that that's what I wanted, and I'm going to do everything that I wanted to do because I thought if I did that, it would make me happy.
Wow, man. So, what age are we talking, man? And what kind of stuff? And you could be raw here. Like, I know you don't
Sure,
want to stray the gory details, but man, this is just a real place. But what age we talking about did this start to happen? And
12
how did
years
you
old.
officially get in with this gang?
So it was 12 years old when I started to kind of veer towards the dark side, right? But we started, yeah, I got jumped in. Basically, it's called a put on. They put me on, jumped me in. And then yeah, it's very similar to the Hispanic gangs in my area.
Mhm.
We did have a lot of influence from them. We also dressed like them in certain ways, back then at least. And yeah, that's essentially how I got in. Mhm.
Wow, man. Wow. And was that the same gang you would stay with all your life, basically?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We never back in my time there was no flip flopping, there was no hood hopping. So
Yeah,
you could not if you did that, that was either you get murdered or something would happen to you, but yeah.
yeah, man. So, are we allowed to say the name of the gang or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I was from Watching, specifically Oceanside Watching. Yeah, it's a subset, a clique, a side they would call it. Mhm.
Yeah, Watching, man. For those of you out there who don't know, like I've known about Watching since many years. I've never had run-ins with them, back in my day before when I was gangbanging, but I very well knew of them. To me, they were more of organized crime. There was somebody you didn't want to mess with, just like the Vietnamese, man. We always, thought of them as they have Uzis, they're very well armed, and stuff like that, man. So without glorifying the life, what take us through your life in watching if you can, as much as you can,
Sure,
without getting yourself in trouble, man.
sure.
Tell us about the lifestyle. What kind of life did you live, and did you ever get busted and all that junk? You know?
Absolutely. So I did get busted, but the type of lifestyle we had was very typical to most gang members who come from a broken home or come from, a place of depression and emptiness. So that emptiness caused me to kind of seek a family, which eventually was the Dubs, which was the Watching, that became my family. And they showed me a lot of love, honestly, and a lot of the OGs. We had real OGs. We didn't have people who
Mhm.
were just a couple years older than us. We had
Right.
older fools, and essentially they showed me the ropes. How to carry myself as a gang member, how to conduct myself as a gang member, the level of respect. A lot of my OGs did time, so they were very structured in that way, and they understood the politics. So prior to even hitting the streets, we understood what the prison politics were, and that's how we carried ourselves. So not to glorify the gang or anything like that, but that is essentially what I went through. And so we were taught to just go 100 every time, when we would go out. And if we had to bust missions, if we had to rob people, whatever, we had to always strategically plan it out and do these things. And essentially, that is what my gang consisted of. And I was a person who, like I said, trusted myself a lot and really wanted to do everything that I wanted to do. And eventually, that type of lifestyle leads into either death or prison because it's basically all gas, no brakes is the best way to put it. So I eventually ended up catching my case and for dissuading a witness for the benefit of a gang, and essentially going to the California Youth Authority, what better known as YA, and I was there in SRCC, and then after that I went to transfer to Fred C. Nellis, so I was in Nellis YA.
Yeah, YA, man. So right there, Nellis, man. It's closed down now, man. But you must have
Yes.
been fighting a lot, huh?
Yeah, that's where I learned how to fight, and in every interview I do and everyone who asks me, they know it. People around SoCal, they know about Nellis. It's in Whittier. It closed down in 2004, but prior to that, it was really, really gladiator school. There was all kinds of things happening there that I really am thankful that it was closed down, because it makes a lot of the juvenile wards, these children that go there, it turns them into monsters, honestly. And that's just the truth. Mhm.
Man, so you definitely outnumbered there ethnicity wise, man, big time,
Absolutely. Big
So I'm sure
time.
you're fighting there a lot, man. And did all that if I know Mexicans, man. Usually at the time I was doing time, we like back in the day, I went through the system, I went through prison, I went through county jail. Most of the time I went through Orange County Jail. We always got along with the Asians. We always got along. The Vietnamese, there was a big Vietnamese faction over here, in the Garden Grove and all that. But you know, even the mob, and we always got along, man. But I could see in YA, man, kind of like trying to bully. Mexicans sometimes we try to bully, man, did, and you could be raw, man. Did that make you kind of like hate Latinos in a sense? Like, did you go
you
through
know
that, or did they vibe with you?
Honestly, in my area, it was like everybody was against everybody. Back when I was growing up, late '90s, early 2000s, no hoods in the SUV would get along, and that included Asians,
Wow.
Mexicans. Like nobody was cool with anybody. Like that's what I remembered. So everybody wanted to smoke with everybody. That's just how it
Yeah.
was. It was a free for all essentially. So where I come from, yeah, it was there was a hatred developed, not just between Asians and themselves, because there was like the Chinese against the Vietnamese, there was like the Cambodians against the Chinese, there's all kinds of stuff. But with my gang particularly, we didn't have any allies, and everybody hated us. And there was actually other gangs would click up to go against us, and that's honestly the truth. But in terms of like other Latinos, yeah, if we would cross the like border to the next city, yeah, we would have issues with Mexicans too, because we were deep, and they would know that we were gang banging. They knew that we would fly colors. They knew that, just by looking at us, they knew who we were essentially. And they also had issues with all the other gangs too. So even if they didn't know who we were, they thought that we were like either Asian boys or other good hoods that they did have issues with, and they would just get us anyway. So that's really how it was. And yeah, I did develop that type of hatred, that discrimination, that and it wasn't until I got to prison that I actually started to kind of heal from those wounds and understand that there's actually some solid Hispanics and very, very respectful people. You guys are actually very similar to my culture. You guys are all family oriented. You guys have like that bravado, that respect, and I really actually respected that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's a trip. The SGV is a whole little world, bro. It's a
Yeah.
whole little world of a different. You go to LA. A lot of places in LA are mostly Hispanic.
Right.
You go to SGV. It's like a mixture of a lot of people, bro. And
It
I,
is.
I used to have friends. After I became a Christian, I used to have friends that were Asian, and they used to tell me stories how they used to go around and get in their car and just go beat up Mexicans. And I'm like, really? Like I didn't know this stuff, bro. So I had to learn. I was like, really? So
Yeah,
TV is just a different animal, bro.
it
It's a
is, bro.
different animal.
Yeah.
Something I didn't know about. But um, so you went through YA, man. Did you graduate to prison, or did you not make it to
Yeah,
prison?
yes, I did. I did. I eventually, I got out 67 days, and so basically 2 months and a week, and I caught my second case. Most people who know people who go to YA, they become loose cannons. Like I said, it does make you a monster, and it does make you have to prove yourself. And at that time, right when I got out, I was actively banging. So yeah, I didn't learn my lesson, to be honest with you. And yeah, I caught a case for 2 counts of assault with deadly weapon. And yeah, they shipped me out basically. Did reception at Lancaster, and then ultimately went to Ironwood State Prison. And then when they did the prison reform at that time, and I ended up going also Mississippi for a little bit, and doing some CDC time out there. Mhm.
Tell us about your time going through the system, man. How was it? Did you have homies there already, or where you landed and stuff like that? First,
Yeah.
how was it going through the county jail, man?
County
Finding
jail was honestly, county jail was worse than prison. Like 100%. I'm sorry to say, but it was overpacked. There was still a lot of this BS. You just meet, it's like a way station of just BS, So, and then there's still kind of gang banging in there. So if you see like people that you hit them up, and then they have to fight and all kinds of stuff. But when I went to prison, also I didn't really know how to program my first like year or two there. It was very hard for me to program because I was a YA baby. And so I had to learn how to calm down and step on the brakes because now it's not about gangs anymore. It's about race. So I really had to learn that, and that was something that was very very difficult for me, to be honest. But yeah, luckily I had a lot of homies in there. My like I said, my gang was very deep. Back in the day, and they knew about us. Every yard you went to, there's always a couple homies there. So, yeah, definitely.
wow, what a trip, man! And yeah, like I said again, like I did time. My time of doing time, was the late '80s to early '90s, and it was a trip, man. So when I was there, I had to go back to court. Going back to court, going through the county jail was a trip because there's different little games, little dumb things, bro. But then you get to the prison, and it's it's cool. Like it's more respectful. It's more it's more structured. Just going to. But now I don't know, but I hear the prison's a lot like the county jail. That a lot of those things have followed now. That's what I hear. I don't know. You guys doing time would know. But man, bro. So did you get in any muck and stuff inside the prison?
Of course, but those things I kind of since people are still kind of incarcerated, but for certain things that we've done in there. But I mean,
Yes.
yes, I've definitely done some stuff. We've been in just riots and stuff like that, and I've seen a lot over there, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was a bunch of so we did pinochle and just little things that most prisoners would understand when they if they've anyone who's been through that prison system. So yeah.
Yeah. Did you when you guys were in prison or in YA or basically prison, did you guys you know and I bring this stuff up, man, because it's so beautiful to see what God does later on.
Right.
So did you ever get in like I know because of SGV and knowing about watching and knowing the stories I've heard, I know you guys fought a lot with Mexicans in jail. Did you how were you guys with the black inmates?
So certain yards that I went to was kind of different. So like, it really depended on the yard, honestly. Like sometimes it was the brothers and the others, right? Like you just had the other car, which is part of the Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, all the Asians, and even Samoans, Pacific Islanders, they would, be in that car. But yeah, usually most yards that I experienced would be okay with the blacks. But then some yards we were actually really cool with the Mexicans too. We were cool with the Sureños, and so it just really depended on which yard you were at and how that Ramfla or whatever was pushing it at that time. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, during the time I was doing time, we were always cool with the Asians. We are always cool with the whites. But after my time, I heard just stuff just went haywire, man.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
that's what I didn't see. So I don't know what happened to set that off. But so take us through, man. So you're in prison. Like I don't know if you went back or not, but take us from there, man, and take us through the rest of your life and what happened, and even to where are you now?
So, as I did the prison time, the one thing that I share a lot that most inmates are not allowed to share about is this emptiness and this sadness that you felt inside of your heart. In prison, it's all about bravado. It's all about respect. In prison, I'll be honest, I didn't, because I grew up Buddhist, I did not want to hear about God. And in prison, there is, chaplains and churches and stuff, but I never really went. I think I tried one time to go, and I just didn't want to walk both sides of the fence. Part of me was sinning, and another part of me was, trying to be righteous. I didn't want to do that. So, essentially, I just rejected it completely. And I didn't know anything about Jesus except for Christmas was his birthday, and he died for our sins. That was the only thing that I really understood about him. And so from then on, I felt this emptiness and this sadness. But one day, like towards the ends of my sentence in CRC Norco, we got transferred out and I paroled out of there. essentially there was a program called the Mind Education Program. And that program, they came in and there was a pastor essentially who at that time I didn't know was a pastor. He just said he was a mind education specialist, a lecturer essentially. And there's a lot of programs that I signed up for. I did try to do counseling, anger management. I did try to do, like just the little trades that they offered. And I did eventually even get my GED in prison. But I signed up for this program thinking nothing of it. It was a very long program. It was like 56 weeks, so it was kind of like a year program, but it would have given me good time and stuff like that. So anyway, they come in and they say off the bat that they're a Christian based organization. But the funny thing was they weren't really talking about God. They weren't really talking about Jesus like that. They were teaching about things like the world of the heart. They were teaching about, they were asking questions that were really pricking me in my heart, like saying, do you guys feel empty? Do you guys feel that sadness, that up and down roller coaster lifestyle that you feel? One day you're happy, next day you're sad. Happy, sad is a vicious cycle. So when I started to really listen to this lecture, I was able to see that, man, this is amazing. They're talking about me right now. And how do they know what I'm going through? This guy looked like a square, straight up like suit, like comb over, like, but he knew exactly all of my struggles, and he was saying like, essentially what God does and what Satan does. But he was explaining it in a very, very simple way, So one of the lessons I remember was also he was talking about like a kite. He was saying like, you guys ever flown kites as kids, and we're like, yeah, of course, and then he's like, when can a kite fly freely? It's when it's connected to the person that's flying the kite that it could actually fly. But if you cut the line, the kite will start, maybe looks like it's flying temporarily, but ultimately it'll end up in a tree. It'll end up on the power line on the ground. It won't fly anymore. So likewise, we as human beings need to be connected to something. And I was kind of shocked, like, man, I was always connected to myself and connected to my homies. But other than that, I wasn't connected to anything spiritually. I was just very, very like dark all the time. And he was mentioning how like having that connection to God, when you have that connection, the heart of God starts to flow into you. And I was very, very like shocked when I heard that, So from then on, I started to really pay attention. I completed the course. And I must say that honestly, it changed me as a human being, But when I got out, it was hard for me because the temptation came again where, I had to go back to my homies. I was a two-strike felon. I did not have, any route to really make money. I was applying to everywhere, even McDonald's, and nobody was hiring me. And so I had to kind of, really fend for myself. And I started to really question God at that point. But the amazing thing is, now I'm actually a prison minister, and I've learned that, God is allowing everything in my life for a reason. When I looked at my life, I thought it was a curse. But when I look at it now, I'm able to go to prisons. We're in 126 prisons across the
Wow.
US. And as I go into these Lancaster, Chino, these different prisons, and they see people like me, they just feel more comfortable because, when I see someone, even me, who's all suited and booted and, looks all good and stuff and all goody goody, I really can't relate to that person. But, when I see somebody who looks like a homie, that's when I'm like at home. I feel like,
Yeah.
we can connect, so they feel the same way and they've expressed that to me. So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm just going around spreading my testimony and how God has worked me and inside of my life and how he has removed that emptiness, that sadness that I felt, so yeah. Mhm.
That is cool, bro. And then, what prison ministry are you involved with, and how did you get into that, man?
So with the right now we're doing Lancaster, and then we're doing a couple of different prisons, like, but mainly Lancaster is where I'm stationed at. I go there every week. But essentially, how I got involved in that was I started to attend the church that the lecturer, had kind of laced me up with. And when I went to that church, which is in Temple City in San Gabriel Valley, the pastor that I met there, we had a very good fellowship for like about 2 hours. And he talked about, like my heart. He talked about what sin was. And he just started to really emphasize why we live this vicious cycle of sinning and then repenting, sinning and repenting, sinning and repenting until we died. And then that's something that was really sad, and I felt like I was doing that. So when he spoke to me about that, and he basically preached me the true gospel, I was able to truly receive salvation, have all of my sins cleansed, past, for present, and future sins. And then through that, he just pitched it to me. Do you want to maybe follow one of the lectures to prison? And I was like, I mean, yeah, but I had a lot of thoughts at the time. Satan was giving me these thoughts that you're gonna look weak, bro. What if you go there and people know you? You know what I mean? Like, what it is just it's not a good thing. But as I shared my heart with the pastor, he was telling me that there is a reason why Satan is trying to stop you. It's because he knows that God will be glorified through this. So in my opinion, you should just go. And when I went, I just gave my testimony, and I've seen a few of the inmates like cry. I seen a few of the inmates come up to me and shake my hand, and they were just very open. And they gave me their hookup, like their information to talk to them. And when I think about it now, it's such a blessing. I never thought that I had that in store for me. I just thought, man, I'm weak, and why am I doing this, right? But when I stepped forward and threw my thoughts away, that's when God really worked and everything. So yeah, that's how I got linked up.
That's beautiful, man. That is cool. Having done prison ministry myself and going
Right.
in Chino and stuff is, I love it, man.
Yeah.
And I know what you're talking about, bro, because man, you go in there and these brothers in there who are brothers of ours are just so on fire,
Yeah.
and of every race, every nationality, every ethnicity. They're just like coming up to you, and it's so cool, and you have that connection, you
Yes.
know, and they know real. And the question I got to ask is, how did Ching feel about this, man? Your life change.
So you know what? In the beginning, I'll be honest, some of the homies weren't really feeling it, because again, it was more about just the bravado, the respect. We as people had to represent something bigger than ourselves, right? That's what they were kind of telling me. And but the good thing is, we are respected in our neighborhood. Like me, I'm fairly respected in my gang. So they kind of let me just do my thing, and it wasn't anything crazy. But as they start to see, like, I'm happier and how God is helping me, I always have love from the homies. Honestly, they I can always go back to my neighborhood. I can always hang out with them. I mean, we just recently I went to go eat with one of my friends who grew up, how I grew up with. He's in the same hood too. So yeah, I believe God leads the footsteps, because yeah, there's a lot of people who don't feel it, but God has allowed them to kind of open up their heart. And when they watch my podcast, when they see the Hood Stocks podcast has 150,000 views or whatever, like, they're starting to see that, man, he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything to speak to the camera per se. He's not snitching on nobody. He's not talking about cases and stuff like that,
Right.
but rather he's just sharing how God has helped him. And when they see that, there's no issue. And I mean, I'm a YA baby, so I've been through the system, and it's tight lips, but I'm open lipped when it comes to God, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool, man.
You
That's
know?
cool. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that Hoodstocks
Yeah.
thing. 'Cause I think that's where my buddy saw you. And yeah,
Okay.
again, if you don't know, one of my buddies, Sam, saw you on a show, probably Hoodstocks. So you
Yeah.
got to get this guy
Shout
on.
out
That's a true
Sam, man.
story.
Shout
Yeah,
out
man.
shout out
Yeah,
Hook Stocks too. Lucky from the Hood Stocks.
yeah, yeah, man. That's cool. He had you on, because as far as I know, he's not really, following the Lord, but that he's open to have somebody on who is. That speaks a
Mhm.
lot, man. So much respect to Lucky. you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And man, bro. So let's say somebody's watching now. I'm sure through whatever. Some of the homies from watching,
Mhm.
some of the homies from who may not even know you, from newer generations or maybe even older generations, or from the Bay Area. The Asian boys. There might have been some of your enemies, some of the Vietnamese, some of the Mexican gangs.
Mhm.
They're watching right now, man.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, let's say, just pretend the world's ending today.
Mhm.
What message do you have for all those guys? What
Okay.
message do you have? What's the most urgent message you could give to everybody out there? What's the
Yeah.
most urgent message you could give them?
So the most urgent message is, we are not the judge of ourselves, right? When I was committing a crime, let's say I did my assault with deadly weapon, right? I was not able to go to the Pomona court and say, you know what, I feel like I should do 100 days in county for lid for this. I don't judge my sin, right? There is a judge for your sin. And I want people to understand that he's not a angry God, but he's a God who forgives and loves people. He understands that our sin was inherited to us. So our sin was passed down to the generations. People think that if I commit sin, like rob, shoot, and kill people, that I'm a sinner. No, actually, you're born as a sinner, and because you have that sin inside of your heart, it produces sin. So I want to clear that up for people, that it's not because you do something that you become a sinner, but you're born as a sinner. I'm Chinese. I didn't choose to be Chinese. It was passed down to me through generations. Likewise, our sin was passed down to us through Adam. So we are actually just being normal, and God made all of us sinners. Why? So that he can give us true righteousness, so that he can do the job of taking care of our sins, not ourselves. And so he sent Jesus Christ, who died on the cross. And when he died on the cross, he didn't fail. He finished all of our sins, past, present, and future sins. Even when we look at ourselves, a lot of the times we think that we're still sinning. Yes, but God looks at us like a telescopic view. He sees from top down. We see horizontal, straight. So God is seeing our past, present, and future. He can see everything. And he washed all of those sins perfectly, white as snow. And so anyone who's feeling empty, anyone who feels like they can't just come out and share their hearts, please contact me, and contact people who really know the gospel, who know that you have been perfected forever, as it says in Hebrews 10:14. For by one offering he has perfected forever them that are sanctified. Perfected is in past tense, and forever means eternally. God has made you righteous. And so when you have that burden of sin in your heart, a lot of the times you will continue doing what you want to do, because there's no light at the end of the tunnel. That's how I lived. I would live up and down. One day I'll be happy, next day I'll be sad. And Paul talks about this in Romans chapter 7. He talks about, for the things that I hate, that I do. For the things that I want to do, the good that I want to do, I don't do. That is talking about me and whoever is listening here. If you're struggling with that emptiness and that hopelessness, it's only because of one thing, because you're an imperfect person trying to produce perfection. It's impossible. That is why we continuously fall short. But God knew that. That's why he sent his son to die for that. And when he made us righteous, he made us perfect already. And so when we go in front of God as a perfect, righteous person, not through our own works, not through our own good deeds, but through only the blood of Jesus, his son, and his sacrifice, we can truly boldly enter the kingdom. So when we have the hope of heaven at the end, that is the biggest light of the tunnel. The worst case scenario is heaven, and that is actually the best case scenario for many people. So I really believe that there was nothing that rehabilitated me, not me trying to do well, not me trying to do anger management or counseling, but it was only the word of God that entered. When it entered my heart, kicked out all of my despair and sadness, provided me a wife, provided me a kid, provided me things to actually live for and hope inside of my life. And that's the message that I want people to understand, is that Satan will make it seem like there's no hope, but there's always hope. It's just inside of the Lord. And that's really how I changed. And that's really how, everything has been up for me, So yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
That is so awesome, man.
Yeah,
It's so cool. But Johnny, we thank you so much for coming on today, man. And in
absolutely.
closing, do you have any last words for anybody out there? And also, how, besides the last words, how can they contact you if they want to get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So, this closing out, I do appreciate, first off, LA Times. I appreciate the thing that you guys are doing. I do believe that you guys are advancing the kingdom. And please, anyone who is listening in, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Really, we need to push this message, because our generations, the youth is where it's at. And many people are turning away and feeling hopeless and helpless inside of their hearts. And I believe channels like this and many other channels that push the gospel are very, very necessary right now, especially in these times. So please do that. And then last thing I want to say is you can follow me on Instagram, No Script Fellowship. It's down there in the blue bar, but it's NOSCRIPT Fellowship on Instagram. And also, I will be starting a YouTube channel fairly soon. It's going to be called Righteous Nomad, like a nomad that goes around and preaches the gospel. So it's Righteous Nomad, and that will be my new YouTube channel. It's coming. It should be in a couple more weeks, but yeah, please follow me there. And then also, I'm a normal dude. I'm from the SGV, so you guys can hit me up anytime on my phone number. I'll put it out there, 818-450-6547. You guys can contact me anytime, text me, whatever you guys, whenever you need somebody to just hear you out, chat, fellowship, whatever, I'm there for it. Thank you guys.
Yeah, man. When your channel starts, man, let us know so we can push it. And if you ever need me to come on and share my story, man, I'd love to too. And
Absolutely.
man, it's just beautiful, bro. Thank you so much for coming on. This is LA Times signing out. Please follow Johnny at No Script Fellowship on Instagram. We look forward to your YouTube. Thank you, everybody. God bless you. Hit the thumbs up. We'll see you later.